Hi there. I'm Nadira Jamal, hostess of the Belly Dance Geek Clubhouse online radio show, and welcome to this special interview series with some of the instructors from the 2015 Las Vegas Belly Dance Intensive. The LVBDI is now in its final year and will be held September 10th through 13th at the Flamingo Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. To make sure that you don't miss out on this epic event, visit bellydanceintensive.com. My guest today is Draconis, who will be teaching a session at the intensive called Eclectic Combos. Draconis is a fusion belly dancer from Dallas, holding more than 10 awards for his eclectic fusion style. His explosive stage presence, androgynous appearance, and big red hair have been winning audiences over in the belly dance community, internationally, and beyond. You can check him out at Draconis Dances, spelled DraconisDances.com. Thanks for joining me, Drake.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the workshop that you're teaching at the intensive?
Yes, it's called Eclectic Combos, and it's supposed to just be sort of a fast, fun, fast-paced class for all levels of dancers, just to sort of get your feet wet in a few different styles of fusion that I really like to get into, such as I've got like an Afro fusion going on, like some West African, Haitian stuff put together. We've got some more contemporary stuff. And it's just kind of a little, teaspoon of a few different things that I really like to do just to get everyone sort of interested in branching out in fusion.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the benefits of taking a more eclectic approach to the dance?
In my opinion, cross training in your dance and getting as much experience with other styles that interest you, of course, can only do good for your dance practice. Even if you identify completely as a belly dancer and you don't ever want to perform other things singularly, I think that taking other styles of dance to sort of enrich your education is always a good thing. And, it always gives you options as far as combinations and choreography goes, if that's the kind of dancer that you are that likes to plan performances like that.
Mm-hmm. I really agree with you. I've always been kind of a traditionalist within my own dance, and every time I take something in another style, even if I don't use the specific material, it always gets me so inspired to, just add a little difference in dynamics, or it just makes me feel more inspired, even if I don't end up including any of the material. But if you are, open to incorporating other things, and I'm not open to it, but I usually try and stick to more traditional stuff. But it can
Hmm.
really add so much richness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. And can you tell us a little bit more about why you picked some of the styles that you chose to include? You mentioned, your Afrofusion, etc.
I have just I've noticed this as a trend in my life. The reason I pick so many different things, or various whatever specific things that I've chose to teach at the eclectic workshop, is sort of reflective of the story of my life. I've never really been able to settle on one thing aside from my hair color. Everything else, like gender, clothing style, job, I mean, dance style, I have to change it up and switch it up. And so just after absorbing so many different styles over the past few years, I just have found ones that the specific fusion combinations that really speak to me. And like the workshop with the combinations, the specific combinations will change, depending on what flavor is the best that year, with the dance inspiration. But yeah, the what I've really been getting into recently has been more. I've taken a lot of ballet and these weird modern classes, so that's been really speaking to me a lot. And I've done these West African and samba classes, and completely different dynamic, but still just as interesting to me. And so when I find something really exciting for me, I find that that's the most fun to teach other people.
Hmm. And taking a even bigger step back, and when you think about what influences you want to bring into your dance as a fusionist, do you tend to be inspired more by what the other dance forms look like, or by the music that you're interested in at the time, or by other things that you're experiencing in your life? What draws you to a particular element that you'd like to bring into your dancing?
I just I see other dancers, not necessarily belly dancers, but just the videos on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, and I just admire certain people's essence. I guess is the way that it makes most sense to me. So when I find something that I'm really attracted to, or like a video with a style, I try and sort of backpedal and find what those components are that contribute to what made this person move the way they did. And from there, after sort of branching out and backtracking a little bit, that's how I kind of funnel it back down into incorporating it back into what I do.
That's definitely something that I've seen in all of the fusionists that make my jaw drop, is that no matter what element they're bringing into their own dance, they've really made it their own. You can tell that
Hmm.
they're not just copying whichever trend happens to be hot right now. You really see this just coming right into their bodies and into the way that they respond to the music, and that's such a wonderful thing. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips on that for other folks who want to do that same process?
As far as like finding your own sort of style, I think it just takes sampling. Whether you want to watch a whole bunch of videos or if you want to take workshops or classes, depending, because I know some dancers live in really awesome areas that have every kind of style of dance class you could imagine, and some people live in places like me where there's like two or three, but everything else is more of the same. And just really when I find what helps me the most, and I would recommend for other people, is when you do the dance conventions or intensives or seminars, and there's a workshop for something that sounds totally weird, or some obscure style of some sort of dance fusion that you don't quite understand but is intriguing. I always try and take something that sounds so far away from anything that I've done before, as well as, if I have the opportunity to take things that can reinforce some stuff, but just branching out and trying something that you wouldn't expect, or watching, you know, weird videos in the same way, whatever pops up.
I'm also a sampler. I really like to try out everything. I'm one of those serial hobbyists. Mostly
Yeah.
outside of the dance world, right? I get really obsessed with something for a year or two, and then I've gotten what I need from it, and I'm done. Right? I've had a good
Yeah.
experience. I'm ready to move on to something else. But one thing that I've found is that, especially when I'm trying out different dance styles or totally different dances, is that, I always learn something that I can bring back to either the dance or to my life. And on the very few occasions when I haven't, it's still been really productive because I know I don't need to spend any more time on that.
Yeah.
Right? I got what I needed out of taking ballet in high school. And I still do my plies every once in a while as a nice supportive thing. But I know at this point that it doesn't have a lot to add to my own personal style. And that's really useful information. Like I took a
For sure.
ballet for belly dancers workshop this past weekend. And I did incorporate some nice things, but it just, having had that experience was a nice way to help me know how to direct my own style. So, even if so I encourage people who don't think they need to take your advice and go try out all these random workshops to go ahead and do that, because sometimes the answer that you get isn't the answer that you were looking for, but it's still worth having.
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense.
So stepping back to your workshop, who would you say that this is most appropriate for? Are there particular styles or levels or personalities that you'd recommend it for?
This class, I think, is more, it is, I call it all levels because I generally I get through about three combinations per workshop, depending if it's like 1.5 or 2 hours. And I try to always vary the level of difficulty within the combinations. So I do generally get like a beginner, intermediate, combination, intermediate, advanced, and then there's a wild card. Um, and it's kind of hard to judge sometimes who that's going to be best for because everyone comes from somewhere different. But with these kinds of workshops where it's just combinations, I don't spend a lot of time on breaking down very basic technique. So I would say it does have some more simple elements, but I would say more of a probably more appropriate advanced beginner to intermediate and beyond, if that makes any sense
Hmm.
to anyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, what made you decide to offer combinations on, with an eclectic focus specifically? I know that's your style, but what made you choose that for a workshop topic?
I just wanted to start getting the whole eclectic fusion, making air quotes right now, the eclectic fusion sort of mindset, I suppose, in circulation. Because I realize, I mean, that's what I call myself, but it's not really a thing. And I thought, if I got to teach workshops on it and talk about it a little bit with dancers and not just, formulating it in my head, then it could be seen as a new sort of a direction that you can take with fusion. Because I think we get one of my biggest issues is that I feel like we get pigeonholed into one style of fusion. Like if you perform tribal fusion, even if you love it, but you love other things, that's kind of what you are typecast. And I think
Mm.
fusion itself is very typecast in general. And so I'm trying to formulate a format and a program, I guess you could say, that helps to show that there are more options for people within fusion. Literally the word is just, fusion dance is more than one kind of dance within the same, piece. So it doesn't have to be fusion, it doesn't have to be like the same two things every time. So that was the sort of like the teaspoon, like I said, little tasting of a bunch of different kinds of fusions that I really am inspired by, just to sort of show that even if you have done years and years and years of, this kind of fusion, like cabaret fusion, but you thought you might be more, you kind of want to start branching out. You want to try something different, or you're not sure, like you feel that way all the time, to show that you don't have to do the same thing or similar every single time, just to kind of show you can have different facets, and sort of how to explore those different facets of yourself and how to bring them out in your dance and your performance. Because there's always like a time and place for a style of fusion, in my opinion, depending on the venue and the event. So I guess the reason I wanted to do combinations was, again, just give little samplings of some stuff that I do to sort of set a model for dancers who are interested in staying more flexible with their styles, not feeling set in one thing. And I totally understand if people find their thing and that's their thing, that's totally cool. But it's more geared for people that I want to encourage, those who want to branch out, sort of give them a little encouragement and some of the tools and a little inspiration for that.
Excellent. And as somebody who does have a pretty clear path, sometimes it's just really fun to be curious for an hour and a half and, see what everybody else in the dance world is doing from a classroom perspective instead of from the audience's perspective.
Yeah, yeah, you totally get a lot more verbiage
Hmm.
and discussion about what goes into it, as opposed to just making your own conclusions from watching a performance.
That's a really great point.
Yeah.
So, is there a tip that you can share for our listeners that might give them a little bit of a taste of what they'd be getting in your session that they could apply right now?
I, just make sure you have the shimmy stamina, as I like to say. Make sure you can keep up the pace. I like to say if you can shimmy for a minute straight and not die, that's a good start. And I always say that it's good to know the French sort of ballet terms. It's not vital, but I do use some of those terms, which and I say them pretty fast. So just if just the basic sort of ballet vocabulary, rond de jambe, first, second position, blah blah blah, just very basic stuff
And
will
could you
be most.
describe a few of those for us so that the folks can start preparing?
Yeah, positions of the feet, mostly just first and second position is really all I talk about. And things such as turns, the difference between a chalet turn and a hook turn. And mostly, other than that, I just say the words like port de bras, which means carriage of the arms, and things like that. So if I throw out there, watch your port de bras, watch your arms or something like that. It's kind of interchangeable. So just to be aware of your ballet 101 vocabulary.
Well, there are going to be a lot of dancers coming in who don't have that experience. Could you tell us what you mean by first and second position?
First and second position of the feet. First position, generally in ballet, your heels are together, your feet are open like a V, facing, whichever way you're facing, I guess, usually the front, and your body's straight. And second position is your feet are either shoulder, a little wider than shoulder width, and also turned out, the toes pointing at the down corners of the room. And you can either be in a bend or straight, but generally we're in a bend at that point. So it's just whether your feet are together or apart for the mostly, but it's just sometimes it's easier to just say, I was like, you move through first and then you end in, blah, 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 blah. It just comes out really fast sometimes.
Gotcha. And so, what are you the most excited about for this year's intensive?
Since it is the last year, I am really jazzed to see who all gets to perform and what they bring, because I feel like since it's coming to an end, that people are gonna bust out some really cool stuff, and I know they did last year from what I heard. So I hope that it's just as spectacular, if not more so, this year, and that I get to actually watch some of it and experience everyone's excitement.
Well, thanks so much for joining me, Drake.
Oh, yeah, totally. Thanks for talking to me.
And thank you everybody for listening. If you'd like to learn more from Draconis, you can check him out at www.draconisdances.com. And remember, that's Draconis with an I, not a U. But even better yet, join us at the intensive. You can take Draconis' class. I'll be attending, so you can meet me too. And this is the last time that this epic event is going to be held, so don't miss out. You can register at bellydanceintensive.com. And to listen to more interviews with our fabulous instructors, visit bellydancegeek.com/Vegas 2015. Thanks a lot, everybody.